tornado warning in Bayside. Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and you guys will be pretty familiar with this car right here next to me. This is my and my wife's 2023 Honda CRV Sport Touring Hybrid, and we've had this car now in our family for about 3 months, which means we're pretty familiar with it. And today I'm going to walk you through the best and the rest of this car and things that have really stuck out to me. So let's get into it. And I hate to do this again because we've done... Yeah, there's a little chime every time you get in the car. But I hate to do this again because we do this with every CRV video that we've done since this generation came out, and really kind of most Honda videos that we've done. And it's just the fact that there's some missing items that you don't get in the Hondas that you do get in some of the rivals. Things like if you want a head-up display, or a cooled seat, or a heated rear seat, or a panoramic roof, or a 360 camera, or a fully digital instrument cluster, you're going to have to look at either the Hyundais, the Kias, or the Toyotas, maybe even the Subaru, but you have to look elsewhere besides the CRV is kind of my point, and that's just a little bit of a bummer, especially considering this is one of the more expensive options in the segment. Now, those little missing things are kind of more nitpicks than anything, but the biggest and really only problem that I have with this car is the highway and real-world MPG is incredibly disappointing. Now, pros first. Around town, through the city, it gets great fuel economy, and even at lower highway speeds, like through the city, like 60, 65 miles an hour, this thing actually does pretty well. However, the problem is my wife is taking this thing when she goes into the studio 50 miles up on just open highway, 75 miles an hour on the cruise, and then another 50 miles coming home. And even with the 40 mpg trips around town on the weekends, she only goes into the studio 3 days a week. So Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're just driving around town and getting 40, like high 30s, 40 mpg. Even with those trips, over the last 1,000 miles, we are averaging 26.9 mpg, which is a huge problem because one of the things, and you'll remember this from my reasons that I bought this car, is I wanted better fuel economy. Her CX-5, 2016 CX-5 with 150,000 miles on the clock, was averaging 27.6 mpg when we traded it in. So this, and granted, it's winter, we bought it in December, it's early March now, this is getting worse fuel economy than her CX-5 was getting, which is just kind of unacceptable. Again, the cold Wisconsin winters have probably a lot to do with that, and I do expect the fuel economy to improve as the weather starts to warm up, but also just the nature of this hybrid system doesn't lend itself to being very good at highway speeds, at over 65 miles an hour, let's say. Again, something we'll talk about in a separate video when I discuss the complexity and like how the hybrid system actually works. I know I keep promising that video, but I promise I will make it within the next month and have it on the channel because it's really fascinating and kind of novel the way that Honda's gone about engineering this hybrid system. But in the real world, in this application, from December to March in Wisconsin, it's not it, Chief. Now, the next point is entirely subjective to me and my wife, really, but maybe you share the same opinion. Now, we wanted this color. This is Honda's Canyon Blue River Metallic, and it is a fantastic color. There's loads of metal flake dimension in this paint, and it makes the CRV look expensive. The problem is, you then cannot choose your interior color. You get black with the orange accenting. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it would look better, and I would prefer it if I could also get the lighter interior option that you can get on like a gray CRV. So I don't know why they've not let you choose your interior color for this exterior color here. Why? And like anything, there's just a handful of little nitpicks that you'll notice when you start living with the car. Like for one, there's no temperature gauge, not in your cluster, not anywhere in your center screen. And that's, I guess, not the biggest deal for something like this, but this is also a Honda. They pride themselves on driving dynamics, maybe not quite as identifying their brand with that as Mazda, but still, I'm surprised to not see a temperature gauge, especially considering that you get it in pretty much everything else. And you go into your general settings and there's just no ambient light. It's not a huge deal, not a lot of cars in this class have it, but the Hyundais and Kias do, and it would be nice. You guys know I love ambient light, so it'd be cool to have in the CRV. And then just generally the screen here is, it's not that it's bad, it just looks a little bit more dated than some of the others, the Hyundais, the Kias, the Toyotas, even the, well, this is maybe a little bit nicer than the Subaru, but just generally speaking, you go into, where did it go now? Oh no, I passed it here. you go into here, general settings or vehicle settings, and maybe it's just the way that the UI is designed, but it just seems a little bit like late 90s, early 2000s. Some of the graphics, some of the interaction, some of the rivals are bringing a more modern and contemporary looking UI to their vehicles. And the horn is absolutely pathetic. I mean, you might as well not even bother. And I mentioned before, you don't get a 360 camera. You do get a reverse camera, but even that isn't great. It's kind of grainy. It looks like there's a film over the screen. The film is actually a problem that I have throughout the car. You go to like Apple CarPlay or something like that, and it's not something that you'll notice all the time. But when I go back and forth between the CRV here and then my RAV4, it definitely seems like there's a little bit of a film over the screen here, and the colors in pictures just aren't quite as vivid or bright. And you have a wireless charger here, which is nice, but it does just kind of end up making my phone and even my wife's phone hot. She's complained about this a number of times, and there's this little message here that says, yeah, it's probably going to get a little bit hot, and it could even burn you. And one of the bummers is there's no spare tire. In fact, most cars you can actually have a little bit of a storage area underneath the floor. You don't here in the CRV at all. And of course, there's no spare tire. There's nothing mounted under here. And while we're down here, we might as well mention that the towing capacity is also not super impressive. It's 1,000 pounds. Now, a lot of people aren't towing with their CRVs. So this probably isn't a huge deal, but it would be nice to have a little bit more muscle for towing if you wanted to. And it would definitely be nice to have a spare tire. And we're all kind of familiar with the hybrid hum or the hybrid howl. So when the engine is off and you're just running on electric, under like 20, 25 miles an hour, the hybrids will hum to let pedestrians know that you're around. And the hybrid hum here actually doesn't sound too bad, but it is very loud, especially when you go into reverse. So just something to notice. But with all those tiny little nitpicks covered, let's talk about all the great things, the things that I love about this CRV hybrid. My favorite thing about this CRV versus all the rivals that we've tested over the last 3 months is that this drives, in my opinion, clearly the best. The most luxurious, the most refined, it is the best. It's better than my RAV4 hybrid, it's better than the Nissan Rogue that we're testing this week, it's better than the Equinox that we head-to-headed this thing against, it's better than the Mazda CX-50 hybrid that we head-to-headed, that's not really a term, but we drove this thing with, and it all has to do with how this powertrain works. You know how earlier I was complaining about how the hybrid system isn't really all that efficient in the real world, at least in specific applications, but there is a positive trade-off to that. Now again, this is an oversimplification. We'll have a more deep dive video on how the hybrid system works, but you can kind of think of this as an EV, but instead of the motors being fed by a battery, it's being fed by a gas engine which kind of operates as a generator to then feed power into the smaller battery. So what it results in then is easy, seamless EV torque. There is virtually zero torque kick when you're in EV mode and then the gas engine comes on to then either recharge the battery or give you more power. There is almost an entirely seamless transition between gas and electric. And it's something that is a lot more noticeable in my RAV4 hybrid and in the CX-50 hybrid and pretty much everything that doesn't use this Honda 2-motor hybrid system. It is just overall a smoother experience behind the wheel. It's quieter, it's more refined, and this experience ends up being more luxury tier than the competitors because of it. The steering in this is really, really good, better than the Mazda, I would say. The braking feels organic and natural. It's a great blended braking system. The damping here is comfy without being sloppy or kind of wumpy. And the ride is just overall excellent. The cabin is quiet and refined. The visibility is spectacular. And it's just kind of the easiest and best driving hybrid in the class, bar none. And we talked about color options and spec options on the con side of the video, but I did mention that this paint is spectacular looking, and it is, and extends beyond the paint as well. I think the CRV is one of, if not the best looking in the class. The design overall is just a beautiful combination of modern, clean elegance while still having some geometric sportiness. Again, I cannot say enough good things about the Canyon River Blue Pearl metallic color. It is fantastic. But for the hybrids, you get the black accents and we get the silver tusks up front for our sport touring here. You do get LED headlights, of course, and around the side you get bigger 19-inch gloss black finish wheels. But the profile itself is a clean, boxy design with some chrome accenting around your windows and some black treatments for your wing mirrors, your roof rails, and we even have the roof rack here. And then even the rear design is a nice, clean, and modern look, and the taillights are kind of classic CRV, but almost influence a little bit of Mazda CX-5. I can see that in the taillights as well, but overall, there's really nothing that I don't like as far as the styling on the CRV. And then I do want to touch on the cabin experience overall. Now, just looking at this thing from a distance, it doesn't really look all that impressive. It's just entirely made of the color black. Sure, there's some texturing, there's some dimpling on the dash here, and you get some orange stitching in the steering wheel and the seats, and there's a little bit of personality here and there. But the thing is, it just kind of works. I mean, I have pretty much everything that I would want. I've got a heated steering wheel, and the button is in a proper place on the steering wheel versus like down here and underneath the floor like in my RAV4 hybrid. So that makes sense. The seats are really, really comfortable, and it also has heated seats, and they heat up nice and quick, which is nice. I would like a cooled seat, but we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. But the design, again, is very similar to what we see in the rest of Honda's lineup. It's what we see in the Civic, the HRV, but you get physical climate controls. There's some nice clicky tactility to them. It's not the most expensive or like luxury tier materials, but it does seem to be put together and slapped together pretty well. The quality, the build, the fit and finish does seem to work pretty well. There is some gloss black in places like the dash and some of the upper door card, but it's not where you're putting your fingers. In your center console, next to your drive modes and your gear selector, it's a matte or kind of like a textured finish black plastic. So it's going to resist smudges, it's going to resist scratches a lot better. And you have a physical shifter, you got physical buttons, it's a clean design, and I think it just works really, really well. This is definitely, in my opinion, on the sharp end of the spectrum for this class in terms of what I'm looking for from an interior. And when it comes to more practical concerns like cargo capacity, the CRV is delivering there as well. Obviously, you can see we have a power tailgate, and this button actually looks white during the day, but it glows orange. It's a fun little detail that kind of ties in with the rest of the interior. But it doesn't have the close and lock feature that you might see on, well, like the Nissan Rogue that we're testing this week. But when you actually look at the space in here, you've got like 37 to 39 cubic feet of space, depending on if you want to get the hybrid or not. So you get a little tiny bit less when you go for the hybrid. But even still, this is either within 1 or 2 cubic feet of the biggest in the class. And it is an expansive cargo area that works really, really well. Again, we talked about the fact that there's no underfloor storage here. It's kind of whatever. I also would like to be able to fold the rear seats from back here. I have to reach up to the back of the rear seats to fold them down. But when you fold them down, it's like 77 cubic feet of space, which I believe is the biggest in the class. There's a grocery bag hanger on either side. There's a 12 volt back here, some lighting. So as far as cargo practicality, it really doesn't miss in the CRV. One thing that would be nice though, is if it didn't crush me. Ow! So it's got kick gesture too. But one thing that would be nice is if we had a different, we've got the OEM, the Honda floor liner back here. It kind of slides around. If you tied it down with the little tie downs in the back, then maybe it wouldn't slide around so much, but it would be nice to have a different cargo liner that didn't slide around as much. And just like the trunk, the back seats are enormous. I'm 6'1" for reference. I've got several inches of knee room in front of me. I have plenty of headroom, an inch or two, because of this nice little cutout here. I don't even scrape my nub on the ceiling. There's a couple things that you don't get here. You're not going to get window shades, you're not going to get heated rear seats, and you're not going to get a panoramic roof. Some of those things we've already talked about. But you do have really comfortable seats. The leather is really nice. The orange stitching continues back here. You do have vents back here. You've got 2 USB-C chargers. And just overall, it's a perfectly pleasant place for 6-footers to hang out. And there's a couple little odds and ends that we should cover. Like for one, you do have paddle shifters here, but you might remember that I mentioned we have a CVT. So these actually control some regen braking for your hybrid system to recoup energy back into the battery. And there's also a B mode on the shifter here, which will also kind of work, not quite like a one pedal drive, but give you a little bit more regen to put power back into the battery. Now, personally, I'm the school of thought of coasting is the mosting. So if you don't agree with me, you'll probably like to have these paddles. And you'll probably be able to see when I put my foot on the brake, the power button glows a soft white, but when I turn the car on, then it goes red. Kind of cool. And you can probably see that the A-pillar here says Bose. Now this is one of the first Hondas to have a branded audio system, but They just call the speakers down here CRV speakers. Of course, they are still Bose, but just kind of funny that they neglected to name the ones or put the badge down here at the bottom of the door. But with all that covered, let's grab the key, push that red button, and go for a bit of a drive. Hey guys, real quick, Matt here. Just wanted to say I hope you've been enjoying the video. If you have, would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does go a long way in helping us get access to cars sooner and get access to manufacturer engineers so we can get more information on the cars and get you more information so you can make better decisions. So would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe, like, comment, the whole YouTube thing. But with that, let's get back to the video. Wop, wop. I do like the Honda drive mode sound. Let's hear it again. Can you hear the hybrid howling, by the way? It's howling away. Okay, CRV, Sport Touring Hybrid in sport mode. It's high-pitched. That is high-pitched. But I'll tell you what it also is. It is also a lot quieter and better sounding than my RAV4 hybrid. That engine, and also in the Mazda CX-50, because it's the same engine, is very coarse and very thrashy and very vibraty and just kind of grains on your ears a little bit. This is so much better. Okay, so I kind of want to talk about this in the things that stand out to me from a realistic experience. I've had the car for about 3 months now. My wife drives it most of the time, but I also have had quite a bit of seat time in this thing. And the thing that really stands out to me, we'll do cons first, because I should really say con first, because there's kind of only one thing that I really dislike, and it's just the fact we've kind of talked it to death already, but it's just not efficient in the real world in our use case. If we switched cars, because she does all this open highway stuff and I just mostly drive around the town or drive around the city. If we switched cars, this would be getting, instead of 27 mpg, it would be getting like 37 mpg. But since it's been cold, since we got it in December, and since she just mostly drives to work on real, high speed open highway stuff, 75 miles an hour on the cruise, this thing just sucks fuel down. And it's super disappointing. I think I mentioned earlier, like, we're getting worse fuel economy in this CRV hybrid than in a Mazda CX-5 non-hybrid from 2016. Like, in my opinion, that's not acceptable. The RAV4 hybrid system, the Hyundai and Kia hybrid system, they work way differently. So again, we'll talk about that more in a different video, but this has just been really disappointing from a highway and cold weather fuel economy standpoint. And I can kind of see what's happening, because you can see what the engine is doing and how much your live fuel economy is getting. And it's a very much what it seems to me to be is an all or nothing system. So what the system, or what the hybrid system is banking on you doing, is really little torque demand, a lot of coasting, really little throttle input, so then it can throw itself into EV mode, and then it can recoup and just get all that unlimited MPG for that. But when the engine is on, i.e. all of the time on the highway, all of the time, it just hangs out right at that first tick, so it's getting like 24 MPG. So again, at 70, 75 miles an hour plus, it is just gulping down fuel. Like, the electric motors, since it's not really worked in between the engine and the transmission, it can't feed in and take strain off of the gas engine. So it's kind of on or off. If the gas engine's on, you're going to be getting low to mid 20 mpg. You're really banking on that engine turning off to get into EV mode. That's where you get the fuel economy. So if you do drive on the highway, it's not going to do that, and that's why you get such bad fuel economy on the highway. But when you drive it around town, you are going to get into just EV mode all the time, and that's when you're going to get the almost 40 or low 40 mpg. Okay, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I want to talk about the things that I like about this car. That's really my only con. But there's so many things that I do like about this car. I like the way that it looks. I like the paint. I like that it's enormous in the trunk. It's huge, a huge trunk. My wife and I both had Mazda CX-5s in the past, and that trunk was, that competes in this class, but the trunk was like a fraction of the size that this one is. This is a truly huge trunk. I'm not sure that the cubic feet and the numbers do it justice, but also the rear seats, also huge. I can fit back there easily. Paulo can. Like it's no problem, and it's also comfortable. The seats, the driving position, natural, organic, and that's kind of the thing that comes out behind the wheel. I mentioned before, earlier in the video, that this is easily, in my opinion, the best driving of all these cars or all these hybrids in the class. And part of it has to do with that hybrid system. Since it is just kind of an E-motor on that front axle, there's no torque difference, there's no torque kick that the CVT has to manage. It's just smooth, and it's quiet, and it's refined. And it is just unbelievably, like, luxury level smooth. This, and I drove a Mercedes S63 AMG plug-in hybrid E-Performance thing, and they're like the same level of smooth, and that's like almost a $250,000 car. So this is like luxury tier level smooth, is my point. And it just feels good. There's like that indescribable, so much of the content that we do here on Downshift is like on paper, how do these things compare? Do they tick this box? Do they not? But there's an intangible thing going on here in this CRV where it just drives well. The steering feels the best out of all the steering, even the Mazda, better than the Mazda. The seating position feels super, super natural, really comfortable seats. The braking input, really organic. I've got just enough bite without feeling too bitey, but also having some progression. That was a cool Porsche. And the visibility, very good. The damping, here we'll go into this corner. Brakes are easy. Come off brakes, pitch it in. Beautiful suspension and damping. We do have the Kumo, the Solus, all-weather tires that have been great in the snow and continue to be fine here when it's 50 degrees out. So I really like the tires, the damping is great. Just the driving experience as a whole, it's quiet, it's refined, it's luxury tier, and it's just really, really good. And it's so much better than everything else in the class. And the rest of it's also just good. It's missing a couple things. I would like to have a cooled seat. I would like to have a 360 camera, but all those other things that I mentioned, we don't have heated rear seats. It's a nice box to tick to be competitive with the rest of the class, but it's not necessary. You don't need it. And so you get it out here on these country roads and just drive it along. It's comfy. It's smooth. It's a great, great hybrid. So with that, those are my first 3 months impressions with the CRV hybrid. And we'll see you guys at 6 months. So thanks again to you guys for watching. Thank you to Kumo for these very good tires. And we'll see you at 6 months.